Deployments don't destroy marriages, disconnection does. Welcome to the Rhythm of Intimacy, our newest podcast, helping you walk faithfully through fire. So, what does that mean when deployments don't destroy marriages? You've probably been military or veteran or heard it in the news that people deploy and then the marriage gets destroyed, too much money gets spent, and everything else. It's never the deployment because people have come back from deployments and actually kept their marriages. I've been deployed 4 times in my 25 years of service, and our marriage didn't get destroyed. But disconnection did happen. So, how do we go over and break that disconnection? The first off, we got to understand that we are just surviving. The natural inclination with deployments is that we're surviving, but are we still connected? We have to get past the first point to get past surviving. So, what do we go over and to do to break that point? Because there's lots to do. If you're the spouse that's home, you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 kids, and you have the finances and the logistics and the childcare and the school and the sports and everything else, and still trying to manage church. And now the spouse that is deployed is focusing on the mission, but all they have to do is focus on the mission. So, how do you go over and stay connected? Because the reality is the real enemy isn't the distance. You could be a mile away or 10,000 miles away. It's never the distance that goes over and breaks a deployment into divorce. It's always the drift. So it's a little bit of disconnect, missing a phone call, missing a Facebook message, missing a FaceTime, missing a Zoom, and then it progressively goes on in that regard. And it's the drift, and you get used to it. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. So there's also another part of deployments that go over and do that. And we're going to get into our story on how to actually break both of these in a moment, because you can make it through and maybe not drift through the deployment. You keep the connections, you keep the intimacy as best as you can. You're Marco Poloing, FaceTime, everything else. You're connecting every day. I remember me and my spouse, we used the Air Force Instant Messenger. That's how old I am. We didn't have the technology that it was today. But when you come home, why does it feel harder than leaving? So I'm going to share my story a little bit to answer both those questions in the year that we almost didn't make it. So again, I was active duty for 12 years. I was a reservist for 13 years, total of 25. And all my deployments were with active duty. So I would go over and do the deployment and keep the connection as much as possible, or as much as possible what it was. It was a keyboard back in the day and a big monitor and everything else. And I was able to go over and to keep that and be able to go over and do that. And I'm not saying I'm better or worse than any of you that go out there. But the thing of the matter of it is that it wasn't the deployments for me that brought the drift on. It was now getting out of the service and going over, and me habitually going over and allowing the drift mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, and even sexually. And then when we got out of service, it got progressively worse because now I'm trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be and everything else when I got out of active duty. So it got till June 1st of 2014 and almost getting destroyed in marriage in that particular guard. So for us, it was because we didn't go over and focus on connection in that particular guard. We didn't go over and focus on what to do to keep that connection up and rolling. And that's why we almost got divorced, because we were mentally adrift, emotionally adrift, socially, sexually, and spiritually. So how do you take these deployments, which might start the drift or even keep it together, and how to not allow it to accumulate to one day of divorce? I would say it wasn't the deployments itself, but I started to drift a little bit and drift a little bit and drift a little, and I didn't realize that I was getting destroyed by the drift and the disconnection. So the first things first is this. You have to go faith over feelings. When you're deployed, when transition happens, all those different types of things, we base on how we feel first, and that's a no-no in that particular regard. Our feelings are an almond-shaped part of our brain, which is probably only maybe about 1/10, maybe 1/20th of the size of our total circumference of our brain. But 95% of our thoughts are driven by feelings. We have to start utilizing this, our mind, our executive portion, and have faith and trust to start doing that restoration. Because God restores what effort can't. Thinking about even giving sacrifice, when it talks about in the scriptures that a husband's supposed to love his wife as Christ loved the church, and a woman is supposed to submit to their husband, you will not be able to do that on feelings, no matter if there's a deployment or not. So you have to have the faith that he's going to give you the strength to put that restoration in where your effort is not going to fill. I'm not saying there's not any effort in regard of yourself or the spouse, but the thing is that your faith has to be that stable. And how do we anchor that? Because now we go over and how do we anchor that in a practical way? So we talked about faith, and faith is that first anchor. Faith in Christ, faith in each other, faith in his timing to go over and do that. Next is presence. As much as possible to get that face to face, shoulder to shoulder, and back to back time in that order. And when you are deployed, there is many ways to go over and get presence in that particular regard. Nowadays, Marco Polo, for example, is an asynchronous app. You can use Google Meet, you can use Zoom, you can go over and stay connected. If there's pieces of the puzzle that you, the deployed spouse, the person that's actually deployed, can go over and take some of those responsibilities, reading the bedtime stories, even if it's from afar, going over and maybe handling bills, maybe still taking school calls, whatever you can go over and do. I know each deployment is different. When you're an admin guy like I was, it was very easy to go over and to be present and take stuff over, or even try to make presence in there. Like, hey, I'll go over and hire somebody to do the laundry, to do the dishes, those things. So then you can be present with the kids. I will digitally go over and still handle the bills, or we'll get them asynchronously paid out on the 1st and the 15th and everything else. So you don't have to deal with that burden. Maybe I can presently go over and order groceries from afar nowadays in 2025 and keep that up and growing to see if there's more presence involved in there. And last is grace. You're going to fail as the deployed spouse. You're going to fail as the spouse taking it at home. We have to give grace. We have to give God's riches at Christ's expense on a daily basis. We have to ask for God's grace in our marriage. We have to ask for it individually. We have to ask for it corporately. And we have to go over and learn to bite the tongue and go over and speak more with his mind and his heart, and not just our heart and our mind. Because our heart is going to go through thoughts and feelings that are going to be not righteous. And then we might take actions and responses. And that's what we pay for. And that's what brings the drift. The you are statements, just a quick quippy, you are this and you are that, put whatever negative explicit in there, will go over and can destroy you in that particular regard. And that's not giving grace. There's sometimes most of the things in this world can go over and wait to be done or get caught up or fixed in anything else. So have that faith in him, in each other, in the union of your marriage. Have that presence. Try to go over and to drive whatever presence you can have with the family as you are deployed, and giving the grace that's in between. Going from there, what does it actually look like in your home now when you get back. Because there's a big difference of trying to do that now deployed and now you're coming at home. So some of the ways, because you have to do this before, because the drift can happen even before you go over and deploy. The drift can happen during deployment. The drift can go over and happen after deployment. And our potential divorce wasn't because of the deployments itself. There was a little bit of drift and a little bit of drift and a little bit of drift. Number one, as much as possible, and even I'm learning this, even though I don't deploy anymore, is try to eliminate this as much as possible. Going over and cutting it off in that particular regard. It's a lot easier even to be present when watching videos like this compared to videos like this. I think YouTube and the world did it psychologically. You don't get caught up as much when you're watching it this way. So if you are watching this video, I would encourage you as much as you can. If you're watching it on the mobile, watch it this way so you can still be present in that particular regard. But making that time to say, I'm only going to be on my phone a certain amount of time. I'm going to go over and get certain chores certain time. I'm going to go do those things. That's at least the home ops thing. But also purposely present is making present time for your kids and for your spouse. But never go over and put too much presence into your kids that's over your spouse. You got married to your spouse. Your kids are a part of your life. And then your kids will depart. I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and two 15-year-olds. And the two older ones are on their way in different parts of life. And the other two have a few more years with us. But the average person lives to 75 or 80 years old. They're going to be apart. So by the time 45 to 48 comes for me, the majority of my kids will be out of the house or full grown adults. That purposeful presence you need to be. Are you getting regular date nights? Are you taking opportunity to shop with your spouse, do activities, have regular intimacy, going over and staying connected? Because those things have to go over and happen. It's sometimes okay to go tell your, especially teenage kids, I'm not going to that sports event tonight. You're taking an Uber and me and mom are getting some time. Now, my kids are not actively in sports, but I have done that before with my two older kids. I'm like, I'm scheduling you an Uber. You can go over and get home. I will pay the $35 to get them home so I can get time that is worth infinitely more than the $35 I would have saved. And as you go over and do this, don't get overwhelmed in this. The daily mission message is doing one small act of connection at a time, because you might have been adrift for afar. It happens very quickly. You start choosing choice words, you start getting a little snippy, you stop doing as much of chores, you only pursue intimacy when both of you are in the mood, you go over and pursue date nights only when it's available and convenient and everything else, and the drift happens, and you are getting further and further apart, and one day you're looking at each other like this, but you actually were like this the entire time. You were looking at different directions. You went over and pursued the career as the military member. If you're the male spouse, you're pursuing career plus going over and dealing with kids and everything else. On average, the male spouse, even if she works or he works, they take on 80% of the load. So the daily mission message is taking one small act of connection at a time. Rubbing his or her neck, going over doing a handhold, going over and having some time, sharing a video, having a conversation, having shower time at least once a week, having intimacy time 1 to 2 times a week, going over and planning a little money to get a couple hours for the kids to get taken care of. And here's the beautiful thing. This hasn't been done in a long time. And here's a specific tactic that you can go over and use. On average, there's about 1,000 families that live on most military bases. As you go over and build those connections to build fellowship, do rotational date nights. You have kids, they have kids. You can go over and swap and take care of each other's kids, or even have the budget to have somebody to go over and do that in that particular regard. Because if we all came to the community together and did a little bit of service, our marriages would be doing a lot better compared to we all try to pull ourselves by our bootstraps to go over and to do that. Another thing you can add into your quiver, no matter if you're deployed or at home, TDY, 1 mile away, hundreds of miles away, is shared prayer. This is hard, especially for men, at least in my experience. Men, it's a lot harder because we naturally speak less, we're more action oriented and everything else. But shared prayer keeps the heart synced across miles. Asking your spouse through a text, through a Marco Polo, through an audio conversation, through a letter, a sticky. If you hate your writing, there's services now that can go write letters for you for $3 to $5 while you're deployed. You can type it out and then they'll handwrite the letter and then they'll mail it out. But you can ask, what is one way I can go over and pray for you? And it's simple as this. If they ask you to pray for my patience with the kids, Lord, I have my spouse as I am far away to keep patience with the kids. You can literally pray it word for word, and that keeps your hearts in sync across miles. Because just like your missions with your soldiers, you have to see them to go over and to work, and you have those conversations to make sure that you're in sync. Because if you're not, if your right seat person is doing something different than you in the left seat, and you both need to have like eyes on the target or on a convoy, and you need to know that he or she has your back, you're having shared conversations. Shared prayer is now adding the God of the universe and the Trinity in there, and that can keep you synced across miles. Because at the end of the day, is gratitude builds trust faster than arguments will ever will. And when you have that shared prayer, you can have gratitude. And that's a great thing that you go over and do. Choose your handy dandy app of choice, go over and write it in a notebook. And actually, it's been proven when you go over and write things, it's actually way more powerful than to go over and then just type it in. It's just something that gets away from it. I remember even when I used to do podcasts for War Hero to Superhero, when I used to write the stuff out compared to going over and typing it out, it was more impactful in that particular regard. It's the same thing for writing letters and everything else, and sometimes why people read paper books. So your gratitude notes, get yourself a notebook. If you want to do digital pen, I would recommend the Remarkable Paper Pro or Paper Move. It gives you the best of both, and you can write and set up your chart of choice and take that day and say it's Tuesday. What's one thing that I'm grateful for? My spouse goes over and does. Today, I was grateful that she styled her hair the way I like it. I like it more curled. It kind of looks like electricity fire. I love the way it goes over and looks. And I'm thankful for that. And that's going to build faster than an argument ever will. You're less likely to argue somebody if you find out what you're grateful for than to find out what you're hateful for. And also, as you're going over and trying to build these moments and everything else, I would say more men than women. But you can tell me in the comments if I'm right or wrong. Men, we do more grandiose things, right? We go over and try to do the yearly anniversary, the every 5-year, 10-year, the birthday, of course. We hope we don't go forget that. You got Valentine's Day and you got the holidays and everything else. Yes, each spouse is different. So look at their personality styles and their love languages. We'll get into a separate episode of that. But you can't go wait for the perfect moments. Go over and create them. Today, my wife was about to grab lunch. I went over and thought, perfect little moment. Let's go get some sushi. Just got paid. I can at least give you a little bit. She loves going to the sushi man on base, and it'll create a little bit of moment of ease for her in her day. And it brings the disconnection to minimal. And now it brings a deeper sense of connection. One of her love languages is not the 5 love languages, but she loves food. Not like eating it, but the opportunity and the creativity of it, but even special types of food. And Sushi Man gets her dollars. So create those moments. Don't go over and wait for the perfect moments, because the perfect moments usually take too long and the drift becomes too far and everything else. The heart gets sick when hope is just waiting. We have hope in Christ and we have to know it's his time and not our time. When it does come to us, we have a lot shorter wick as humans, so don't go over and wait for the perfect time, because we're not going to make it perfect. We never will. Because reconnection is a choice, and that's the same thing you're going to have to do. So when we got into our mess in 2014, and I realized how much mental and emotional, social and spiritual and sexual junk that I brought to the table, we had that distance. but I still had to go figure out how to go over and deal with that. So reconnection is a choice. And it felt awkward for a long time to try to pursue things. And then she's like, well, you're doing ulterior motives and all these other types of things. And we went through the cycle of abuse, Is this just the makeup sex, the chocolate, the wooing and everything else just to mend my heart until you explode again? It took a while to go over and to build that and to go from almost divorced to be delightfully married for now almost 19 years. But reconnection is a choice, not a coincidence. It's not just going to go magically happen. So if you get adrift on the deployment and everything else, you're going to have to make it a choice each and every day. We all get 86,400 seconds in a day. And the majority of us deployed, let's be honest, especially if you're done with most of the jobs, because most of them are administration, support, those types of things. You're going to have a couple minutes of time. You're in front of an email. You might have access to your cell phone on Wi-Fi and things of that nature. Reconnection is a choice, and you can make that choice just for a couple minutes. Nowadays in 2025, there's hardly no excuse to go through a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And there's also this beautiful thing about the mail. The mail might not be the fastest way, but it is the most consistent way and the guaranteed way. And it's free while you're deployed. So if you want to go write a letter or even type a letter and send it and print it out and then mail it, because your mail is free during that time, you can connect through that way. It communicates a lot more when you do it in the writing, but your spouse is more about reconnecting to their way and everything else. Because God's not finished with your marriage story. Your marriage story is supposed to go till death do you part. And just because we're in a service of arms in serving, it doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice our marriages. I'll give the Air Force core values as an example, and they might change. I've only been out for about a month, but they might have changed. So we have service before self, excellence in all you can do, and integrity first. The thing of the matter of it is those are great values, but it never said service beyond yourself to get a divorce. It never said excellence in all you can do, but forget everybody else. It didn't say integrity first and your spouse last. We serve the people that are in our community. And if we're not serving well our most deepest and most intimate partner, I would question on how well you are truly serving outside in that boardroom. You might be able to meet the checkbox and everything else, but you're probably putting on that paper mache mask and going over and faking until you break. And there is no couple I'm aware of when they were at the brink of divorce, going through the divorce, or anything else, that their performance didn't get impacted in their performance reports and decorations during that time. There was an impact. And even if they were masking along and they did great, it will impact them in one way or another. So let's go over and know that God isn't finished with your marriage story yet. Because realistically, no marriage gets left behind. And that is our goal and our watch. And for you to go over and to be transformed. We'll see you in the next episode.